So it's called the bucket list. It's the list of things that you want to do before you die. It combines the magic of daydreaming, committed to paper, with the intention of following through. Oh, good. It takes you away from the mundane chores of paying your bills and driving your kids to school, and it brings you to a wonderful world of what if. It doesn't cost anything, but it brings you one step closer to achieving the life you always wanted. And don't kid yourself, when you write your dreams down, you are manifesting change. And the only thing better than manifesting your dreams is marking them off the list and putting some new ones on it. A little while ago, I told my sister out west that I was going to do a vision board. And she said to me, "You've already half finished one." And I have no memory. And I went, "No, you're crazy." So I gathered up all my stuff, put it in front of me, scissors and glue. And I picked up the Bristol board, turned it around and went, "Oh, she's right, it's half finished." And then I looked at it closely and I realized I have done almost every single thing on that list. So apparently all you have to do is to put glue on a piece of paper and your dreams will come true. Oh, good. So the bucket list started seriously for me after my 50th birthday and my divorce. This is what I've accomplished in the last 7 years. 40 years ago that's old, when I graduated high school, I wrote in my yearbook, "I'm going to Australia." And 40 years later, I finally accomplished that dream, and you would find me driving up the coast on the wrong side of the road in a camper van. 30 years later, I finally got to scuba dive the Great Barrier Reef. 25 years later, finally saw the Grand Canyon. Took a riverboat cruise, a med cruise, and an Alaskan cruise. Backpacked through Thailand and through New Zealand. Oh, and I also rappelled down 7 waterfalls as the oldest woman in the group in Costa Rica. On my list was pole dancing. Again, the oldest woman in the group, and it looked pretty good. I will try anything at least once, no matter how weird and scary it is. Now, let's be honest, that wasn't me. This is closer to what I would have looked like had there been a camera allowed in the class, and thank God there wasn't. Just a moment. So, after 25 years of marriage, my husband said he wanted a divorce. Then my boss said to me, "We're closing the business and you're out of a job." Life as I knew it was over with. I didn't particularly like my husband at that point, but I really hated my job. And I knew I had to come up with something that I was passionate about at this point in my life. So I did a lot of hard work. I made lists, I did pros and cons, and I came up with running a retreat would be my passion. And then I went to church that day and I told a friend, and he said, "Did you know they're hiring in Costa Rica at a retreat?" And I went, we laughed about it, and I said, "No way." But then as I was driving home, I thought to myself, why the hell not? My marriage is over, my job is over, my kids really don't need me anymore, they've grown up. I've just won the Willy Wonka golden ticket to travel. And it was at that moment of saying yes that the universe sent me a woman who not only wanted to travel with me, but she wanted to plan the trip of a lifetime for 3 months. She was to be the driver, the chauffeur, because I hate driving. And I found out shortly afterwards she hates traveling. 3 weeks into the trip, I woke up and I went, "Oh my God, I wish she'd go home. I hate traveling with her." And that night she looked at me and she said, "I hate traveling, I'm going home." Remember, she's the driver. Now, I could have turned around and gone home too, but I always knew in my heart that this trip was to be a solo adventure. And she was just to get me to rent out my house for 6 months and to get far enough away from Ottawa that I couldn't turn around and go home. So I didn't. I added an extra month, and 24,000 kilometers later, I did the solo trip and my bucket list became very long. Now, did I even change this? Yeah. I have a dirty secret to tell you. I can't talk in a bank lineup or in an elevator because, well, people will look at me and listen. I can't get up normally in the middle of a church or a theater because people will stare at me. So the magnitude of me taking a trip like this was huge. I still have to catch myself when people are telling me of their adventures and say, "Oh, I couldn't do that." And I go, "Oh, of course I can, I've already done it." So on my very first night of freedom and rebellion, I joined a biker gang for the night. That was fun. I did work exchanges, and I did woofing, and woofing is organic farming. So I woofed at an alpaca farm, a beef farm, a vineyard, and an organic retreat garden. I stayed at all kinds of crazy places, like a lot of hostels, Airbnb, bed and breakfast. I even slept in my car one night when I couldn't find a place. Somehow I stayed at 2 all-male dorms in the hostel. I really have no idea how that happened. But my favorite place to stay was couch surfing. If you don't know what that is, that's free overnight stay. I stayed on a sailboat in the San Francisco harbor, and he toured around the harbor with some of us. Then we climbed to the top of the mountain and we watched the America Cup races. That was an amazing day. So if any of you are wondering if I ever got around to the retreats, I did. I worked at them, I volunteered at them, and the best way to see a retreat is to pay money. I did self-improvement, yoga, women empowerment, detox writing, but in pursuit of my dreams, I almost died. While I went to see one of the hot tubs, yet again, I went to a lot of them, 2 police cars separately pulled me over and said, the road is closed because of the Cranbrook flooding a few years back. And I said, oh, I'm just going to the hot tub. Okay, see ya. So I finished, and the owner of the hot tub said to me, oh dear, it's not closed, that road. And I thought, oh, it's the shortest road up there. Oh, against my better judgment, I said, okay, well, I'm going to take the road. And as I get on the road, I realize, oh no, the road's closed. There's absolutely no traffic on it. And I could see the water level rising up. I'm getting scared. And then out of the corner of my eye, I see something brown. Oh, is that a bear? I should stop and take a picture. And a voice in the car actually said to me, keep driving. Okay, so I kept driving. And when I arrived, the police surrounded my car and said, where did you come from? The road was washed out by a mudslide. And I went, that wasn't a bear. Oh my God. Okay. So I got to do a lot of really fun things on the bucket list when I was traveling. I got to swim with the dolphins, massage the stingrays, watch the alligators in the bayou eat marshmallows off their nose, and I played with the starfish and the alpacas. Now, did you know that a alpha male alpaca, when strapped to a table to be shaved, will not only cry like a little girl, he will spit on you, pee on you, and poop on you. And I knew that would be the worst job I would ever have. 30 years ago, I was in the military. I got to go on the range and shoot a machine gun. Finally, 30 years later, I got back on the range and I did a shotgun and a rifle, and now I'm also a knife thrower. Now, I know there are women in this audience who are trying to be fearless, but you've never been to a movie alone and you've never been to a restaurant alone, a nice restaurant, not McDonald's or whatever. I used to be one of those people. But once you put it on your bucket list, you have to do it. And as terrifying and silly, but as terrifying as it seems, it's very liberating to do something like that. I was able to hug a lot of trees in the sacred old growth forests. At one point, my bucket list had 3 major items on it. One of them was to do the Mediterranean cruise with my sister. Check. Then I wanted to do the pilgrimage that I did for 6 months. Check. Then I was left with the very last and most important thing for me. It was reuniting my ex-husband, myself, his girlfriend, and my kids all in one room and having a nice meal together, because we'd never done that in years. And it took a lot of time to do this. And one day he finally extended the olive branch to me and said, you need a place for 3 days between your trips. You can stay with me and our daughter. And I said, okay. So for 3 days, we talked, we communicated. I made a huge meal. It was good, and on that day I rested, and I knew how the Creator felt. So on your walkabout, know that life will go on without you. People will forget all about you. But don't ever think that there isn't a ripple effect to everything that you do. I always wanted to do a working vacation over in Africa, and my partner, my husband, had said, no, no, no. But when he saw me on my pilgrimage, and he was given the opportunity to build schoolhouses in Nepal, he jumped at the chance, and it was life-changing for him. I have a favorite book. It's called The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. You think it's the people that you were so wonderful and they got into heaven because of your help, but it's not. It's the 5 people that you have no idea who they are or how they got there, but you had some kind of an influence on them, like a random act of kindness, a kind word, a smile, or some malicious gossip, but you got them there and you didn't even know you had an impact. So you have to know that you change lives, whether you know it or not. So as you can see, this is where it starts getting weird. This is where I started going to an awful lot of retreats that happened to be clothing optional. And it was there that I learned about body image. That wasn't a lesson I wanted to learn, but it was a huge lesson for my trip. It was through water, like hot springs, hot tubs, waterfalls, the ocean, that the universe progressively sent me messages and made it harder and harder, and I had to learn about body image and being proud. So I went to one yoga retreat, the very first one, and the lady said, "Ladies, the hot tub is clothing optional." I went, "Oh, God, I don't want to go naked." So I wore a bathing suit the first day, and every single woman in that group was naked. I just went, "Oh, there's something the matter with me. I've got to get over this." So the next day I snuck out of class early. I dropped my clothes and I ran to the far side. I was bare naked in public, and I sat there in the heat. And they filled up completely, and not one woman was nude. It was just me. And you already know my fear that I'm not going to get up anywhere at any time because they'll stare at me. So I sat there and I died of heat. I waited till every single person left, and I was so glad that day was over with. But you know what I did the next day? I did it again and again every single day for the whole week that I was there. Then, wait a second. Then the universe sent me to a couch surfer who had built his own straw bale house off the grid, no electricity. Oh, and he was a nudist. And after that, it prepared me to go to Hollyhock, which is a co-ed, clothing optional retreat off of Vancouver Island. That's where I went in water in the hot tub 3 times a day, and I learned to walk nude on the beach. I'm not saying I could do that now, but I learned it back then. One of my most embarrassing moments was looking in the ocean to make sure I was dressed as they were dressed, and they were all nude. So I took my bathing suit off and I went, oh my God, they're wearing tan bathing suits. So I waited till they left. I swam around. I swam too long. The tide went out, and as I went to go back in, I realized there was 1 inch of water for half a kilometer walk facing the lodge and all the people. Oh my God. One of my most magical moments was at midnight, sitting in the hot tub yet again with a whole bunch of people, and we were watching the meteor shower overhead. It was beautiful. And then we went down to the ocean. I don't know if you've ever seen bioluminescence with the plankton. As you swim, the plankton lights up like 1,000 fireflies. And, oh, it's the most wonderful thing. On the final day, I was comfortable enough to paint nude on the beach. And that picture hangs proudly in my house, in my bed and breakfast. After that, After that, all hot springs were nude. One of my most amusing moments was going in, of course, no clothes at this point, and a little tiny tub, and I see a family come in, and they're all in their bathing suits and their towels. Mom goes on one side, daughter goes on the other. I went, oh, this is awkward. And I said to the mom, why are you here if you're not going to be without clothes because it is, nude? And she says, oh, well, I'd like to, but I don't want to upset my teenage daughter. And I said to the daughter, why are you doing this here? She says, I'd like to, but I don't want to upset Mom, and I'd rather be, take my bathing suit off. I said, Mom, she doesn't even want to wear clothes. And she goes, really, seriously? Oh my God. And they both took their bathing suits off. And I went, I'm making change in the world. And I stood up and I left, and I realized, oh my God, the father's coming back shortly. He's going to have a bird, but that's not really my problem. So I'm trying to teach women, and especially my daughters, to see their bodies as fierce and beautiful, because it's all in your attitude. And no longer is my younger daughter allowed to walk in my closed bedroom door and to say, ew, Mom, gross, put something on. So, after my divorce, when I felt unloved and very unpretty, I had boudoir photography done. It was on my bucket list. Ladies, every single one of you should get this done. It is the most empowering, beautiful memories you're ever going to have. It was such a wonderful event that I took both of my grown daughters, and we made it a mother-daughter night, and we each went in our own separate rooms, of course, because that'd be weird. So now my adventures took me to deep into the Costa Rican rainforest in the rainy season, and by myself because I went 2 weeks early, and I probably shouldn't have. There was nobody there, and they put me in isolation, and late at night, it got really, really, really dark, and you could hear all kinds of things rustling outside. And then the lights went out, and I had no power for the night. Pitch black. And this is what I heard. I hope this works. I didn't even know what that was. I just about died of a heart attack. But not long after that, I was out at the 5:30 howler monkey alarm clock, and we would howl together. It was in Costa Rica that I learned to confront my fears. Fear of the dark, fear of loneliness, fear of the jungle, fear of the undertow of the ocean, a lot of fears. And I did see the fury of Mother Nature with the blistering heat of the desert and the mudslides. And I did see the majesty with the Rocky Mountains and the mountains and the beaches and the sunrises. Now, it seems like I'm getting off topic, but I'm not really, maybe a little bit. But when you say yes to everything, a world of opportunities opens up for you. So let's deal with my biggest fear, spiders. And we're not talking little golf ball spiders, like previous speakers had to deal with. Honest to God, they were this big. So, remember when I thought the worst job I would ever do in my whole life was the peeing, spitting, pooping, crying alpaca? Oh, I was very wrong. So on my very first working day there, they hooked me up with 2 Costa Rican ladies. They didn't speak a word of English, and what they did was they handed me a big broom, and they motioned to sweep the sacred hall of all the spiders. So I screamed all day long, and they laughed all day long. And when I finished, I threw the broom at their feet and I said, no more. And they said, they smiled again, they picked it up and they handed it to me and said, now go inside and sweep all the spiders out. And that is what I did for 2 full weeks, spider cleanup. That was officially my worst job. But I did find the strength to deal with my fears, and when the others showed up 2 weeks later, I was able to help them with their fears as well. So, I hardly drink, I don't smoke, I've never had a coffee, and I don't do drugs. But I did say yes to join a shaman ceremony to do ayahuasca, which is kind of a combination of peyote, LSD, and ecstasy. It wasn't a good experience, it was the worst of my life, one of the worst of my life, but I'm still glad I said yes. So here's my challenge to each and every one of you. Make your bucket list. Watch the movie with Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson. You don't have to travel for 7 months like I did, but start the bucket list. There's a lot of inspiration out there for you. Make sure you write it down, what you want to do. Absolutely anything, whether you think it's going to happen or not. Write it down and tell people about it so that you can't back away from it. Oops. The library is full of DVDs and books on this. Now, it may not happen today, but maybe in 40 years, it'll happen for you. Now, do you hate your job, your life, your marriage? If you do like my younger daughter said to me before my divorce. Mom, either suck it up and find something you like about it, or just get out and find your passion. And she was right. When you're looking for your passion, know that the money will always follow and you will always be protected. Pray on it. Visualize and meditate so that you can manifest your dreams. Or like me, just glue it on a piece of paper. My daughters are my biggest advocates for me. When I came back from the 7 month of traveling, I had done a journal every single day. And my oldest daughter put together and published a book for me to have for my own copy. And then she made a wall map in my dining room, and that's the focal point of my bed and breakfast, and it's of all the trips I've ever taken. So I'd like you to close your eyes for just a moment and try and imagine what it would be like to be a hero to somebody in your life. This is what one of my daughters wrote to me, and I'll try and read it real quick. Mom, you're the best role model in my life. You are my hero. The courage to take on such a huge trip solo when we know how much you love driving, the incredible adventures you had. Think back to years ago when you were married and raising us and how you barely seemed to know who you were, only as mother or wife, and you wouldn't stand up for yourself or for things you needed or wanted. Zoom forward to who you are now and realize just how far you've come. The you of the past was great, but the you of the present is so much more. You're a mom, a traveler, a spiritualist, a healer, a lunatic who yells at her GPS, an adventurer, and I wouldn't be surprised if you admitted to wearing a cape and fighting crime from time to time. So, inspire someone with your courageous behavior. Learn to say yes to absolutely everything. Be fearless and be grateful. A mere 7 years ago, I was a very miserable, unhappy housewife with absolutely no future. And then the universe really crapped on me. And now I travel, I write, I storytell, and I take risks. And maybe one day you too can join my adventure, and the two of us can paint nude on the beach together. Speaking in front of a large crowd, check.